Hello everyone, it is Kep, and today we finally have our hands on my glorious, succulent king, Caliban Prime. If you have been a watcher of my channel for a little while, you'll know that I kind of like eat, sleep, and breathe this Warframe. Caliban, after his rework, has had a death grip on me, and I feel like a kid at Christmas right now. I am very, very happy to have my hands on a Prime version of Caliban. There is a really, really special thank you I have to give out to Faded in my Discord community. They just straight up gave me the Prime access through Steam gift cards, no less. Thank you to Faded so much from the bottom of my heart. I have never been spoiled with such riches before, so it is really, really awesome to I don't know, I just I don't know, your support really means the world to me. I really, really appreciate that. Speaking of support, I'm also going to thank my Patreon members, as you guys also give me money. So in the Heirloom Tomato tier, we have Wally West, Sylvie Fox, Mr. Anonymous, Guess, Astra, Clausel, Ace, and Amnesty. In the Beefsteak Tomato tier, we have Row in My Boat, Heather, Aonerd, Ack, and 10VY. And in the Cherry Tomato tier, we have Squeaky, Grug, and Aqua Regalia. Thank you guys so very much. I think that the best way to start this video off is by going over his kit, some different tech and stuff like that that you might not know about, as well as, you know, different things and niche interactions and stuff with his abilities. But yeah, without further ado, we're just going to dive right into it. The video on the Vidaria Prime and the Venato Prime are going to be a separate video because I have a very sneaking suspicion that there are just going to be some people who are interested in one or the other, so I'm not going to make you guys wait through an entire video for that. So it will come out right after the Caliban video, probably at the same time. They'll be uploaded one after another. Anyways, that's enough yapping. This is gonna be like super scuffed. I've made like a million different cuts so far, so hopefully I don't stammer over my words too much because I really, really suck at voice overlay. Sometimes there are literally days where it won't work. So yeah. Caliban's first ability is called Razor Gyre. As you can see over here, it'll just send you forward. It is very easy to control. You do have very, very tight turning radiuses that you can do with your Razor Gyre, which is really nice because you can really use it to sort of spin around an object. If you are in the air, your turning radius does not work. So you can see over here, when I'm in the air, it doesn't really let me turn. There is a brief period where you can sort of aim it before you use the ability like that. So if I'm looking this way and I really quickly turn around, you'll see the Razor Gyre sort of sends me in a weird path. It is much easier to control when you are using it on the ground. The other thing about Razor Gyre that I hope to God a lot of people know that makes this ability much better is that you can cancel it just by jumping. You can see over here we can jump right out of it, which is really nice. So you can even really quickly animation cancel if you want to spam the hell out of it. So it is very, very useful for getting around because it really does send you quite fast. I mean, you'll travel about what? How far is this from here? You will travel about 30 meters with the current build. I'm not entirely sure if it scales off of range or if it's a fixed amount, but 30 meters is certainly, you know, nothing to scoff at when you are trying to travel in a short distance. But yeah, definitely very good, especially if you cancel it and you sort of use your jump cancels in a way that makes sense to help you sort of get around and stuff like that. It is a really good traversal tool, outside of the fact that it, you know, will do all this other stuff for you. If we press escape and then look at the abilities tab, it'll basically give you this huge thing. We're going to ignore the Razor Mortar portion of this ability for now because we're going to have to go over the augment a little bit later. But essentially what it's telling you right now is that it can do Caliban's special status effect, which is Tau. That's part of his passive over here. It doesn't actually tell you that he has access to the Tau status effect and his passive. They're kind of baked into all of his abilities. If you don't understand exactly what Tau does or what the Tau status effect is doing when you apply it on enemies and stuff like that, the easiest way to explain it is that it gives you a multiplicative status chance increase. What this means is that it does not act like a normal status chance mod. If you have a 60/60 toxin mod, and you put it on a weapon that has 100 status chance, then your modded status chance is going to be 160% status chance. Because it is 60 of 100, so 60% of 100 is going to be 60, so we're going to add that 60% bonus on top of your 100% status chance. How Tau stacks work is basically for every stack you get 10% multiplicative status chance, which means at 100% or 10 stacks of Tau, you are now effectively doubling your modded or your final status chance. AKA, if you have 100 status chance on your weapon, and this is after mods. It doesn't care about mods at all. It's whatever the final number that you're attacking the enemy is going to be. What's your status chances? If you have 100% status chance on your weapon and you attack an enemy that has 10 stacks of Tau, your weapon will now have 200% status chance because it's 100% multiplicative bonus. It's not an additive bonus, right? So if we had something that was higher than, what is it? Something that was higher than 100%, like if the Venado Prime very, very quickly can build up Tau because of its unique perk, you can very quickly get some insane number, like a 400% status chance on a melee weapon, which is very, very, very silly. So Tau is a very strong status effect, and it's unique to Caliban, which is really nice. Razor Gyre in particular is not the greatest at applying Tau stacks, but it still does have a fairly high tick rate. And you'll see over here, if I spawn some enemies, you'll see there are damage ticks that Razor Gyre will do. So if I come over here, you can see how those numbers flash up a ton at a ton, right? Those numbers will continuously sort of keep popping up. That's the damage tick rate. So that's the amount of instances of damage that they receive when you were hitting them with Razor Gyre. Razor Gyre will also knock enemies down, which is quite nice. Though this is particularly because of the mortar augment. I don't believe that the knocking down is actually part of the base kit for Caliban. Right now, the Razor Mortar augment is bugged in the Simulacrum, so definitely don't test it out and be like, oh, it's not going to work. It's going to work in game just fine. It's just not going to group enemies properly while they're in the Simulacrum. That might be fixable really quickly by unpausing the AI. I just want to check. No, so that doesn't fix, what is it? It doesn't fix the issue when you unpause AI, so it's gonna have to be something that you just stick your neck through, at least when you're testing in the Simulacrum. But yeah, the other things that Razor Gyre can do, aside from apply Tau status effect, I forgot to mention that Razor Gyre has a 25% chance to apply that Tau status effect. So it is not the best, but also not the worst in the game, or in Caliban's kit at applying the Tau status effect, because, you know, it does have the multiple damage ticks, which can soften up a crowd. So it is quite nice to just sort of prime enemies, especially because if you're running a lot of range, like how I am on Caliban, you're going to be hitting a ton and a ton of enemies. Going back to the ability description for Razor Gyre, it's also going to say that it's going to be able to regen per enemy. So this is going to be able to heal you for 80 health or shields, or at least the build that I have, right? This is basing it off of my main sort of build for Caliban, how I'm using him. And essentially, for every enemy hit by Razor Gyre, you're going to get 80 shields or 80 health. So if you're missing health, it'll heal you. If you're not missing any health, it'll turn into shields and then into over shields as well, which is really quite nice. This regen per enemy is also per damage tick as well. So you can very, 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 very quickly regenerate your entire energy pool and into over shields by simply hitting one enemy with your Razor Gyre. It is very, very comfortable for shield gaining, and it comes out instantly if you can cancel it with a jump. There is also an energy refund per enemy, so this is going to be 25% of the energy cost of Razor Gyre. The interesting thing about this is that it does scale with stuff like energy efficiency, so it means that if your energy efficiency is negative, it actually makes the ability cost more, and you will end up getting a larger refund if you hit more enemies. That is why it's really important to run a lot of range on Caliban, because this radius gets even larger. You're going to catch even more enemies in the radius of your Razor Gyre, which means you can use this as a pseudo energy regeneration tool if you're going to be hitting a large crowd of enemies. You'll see one of the first things I do in a mission is I'm going to spam the ever-living fuck out of Razor Gyre until I can get my energy reserves, and then I can sort of let my equilibrium shards take over, which is something I'm going to go over in a later half of this build. As you can see over here, we also have the Razor Mortar augment. This will sort of go in depth a little bit later on, but it will give 187% fire rate and 187% electric damage to your Ortholis summons when you use Razor Gyre and hit enemies with it. That duration, as well as the duration of the buff. Once you hit an enemy with Razor Gyre, it's going to trigger the buff from the Razor Mortar augment, and then that's going to be, exactly how long you get the bonus damage and the bonus fire rate. Something important to note about the Ortholis is that they do have a guaranteed chance to proc this electric, and if we look at Lethal Progeny as well, there's going to be a 300% mortar status chance. I do believe that for every Tau status effect that an Ortholis applies, it will also apply an electric status effect while this buff is active. So you are going to be getting 3 instances of an electric proc when they are in their mortar mode, which is great because when you use the Razor Mortar, it will immediately put them into the mortar mode when they teleport to the new group of enemies. Anywho, moving on to Sentient Wrath, this is a great crowd control and damage dealing ability. Damage vulnerability in Warframe is a little bit different than a standard damage bonus. If this was a standard modded bonus, it would be additive to your base damage. If you had 100%, or let's say the base damage of your weapon was 100, and you had an additive base damage increase, it's going to be 93. So 93% of 100 is going to be an extra 93 damage. Your base damage will be 193. However, this is a multiplicative increase, which means that it's going to be multiplying what your final damage output is. So instead of damage vulnerability over here, you can very basically look at this as a 2.93 times damage multiplier, which is very, very nice because it's going to be multiplying your damage by the amount that you're doing. This would normally give you the same damage number. If you had 100 base damage and then you had this damage number over here, your damage would also be 193% or 193 as your base damage with this increase. However, it becomes very important when you start mixing in base damage mods because the equation changes and they feed into each other and the number grows even larger. So multiplicative damage sources are very, very valuable in Warframe because there's a lot of base damage increases as well. So having a 93% multiplicative damage increase on Sentient Wrath, and they're going to be displaying the enemy's heads very, very easily. They're not going to get staggered or anything like that while they're lifted. Is very, very nice. It also does do a fair amount of damage, and if you're in low levels, especially Steel Path, you might occasionally kill some chaff enemies just simply by using Sentient Wrath. Same goes for his Fusion Strike as well, because it also does do a very staggering amount of damage. Overall, though, Sentient Wrath is incredibly comfortable, especially when you're trying to set up headshots and stuff like that. I would say this is a damage dealing ability, but the damage bonus is actually much higher because you get a clean shot on enemies' heads. As you can see over here, enemies do not get staggered at all, which is really, really nice for us because it means that we can just line up a nice, clean shot. Another thing to note as well is that the base range is actually incredibly high. I can use Sentient Wrath all the way over here and enemies are still going to get hit. Because there's like a little hill here in the way that line of sight works, only these enemies in the back will get caught. But if I use Sentient Wrath, there's not really a really big area over here. If I use Sentient Wrath up here or something like that, it's just going to hit all those enemies. The range in the tooltip right now with my current build is 58 meters. This is nearly a 60 meter Sentient Wrath. So if we come over here, that's 65, that's 61. So if we bullet jump and we look to the side, this is what a 60-meter radius looks like. It is huge, 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 huge. 60 meters is very, 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 very large. It does not go through walls, unfortunately. It is line of sight based, but because it does have this weird sort of way that it grows out, you can make the line of sight. Specifically, if you can have if you can use your Sentient Wrath and then also end up looking at an enemy in that area, it will also help with the line of sight check. So you can occasionally apply your Sentient Wrath to enemies who would typically not be given the ability effect. Overall, though, it's amazing CC. If you're getting shot at by a ton of enemies, it is really going to help you out. Just because you can stomp your foot, everybody stays still for a second, and you can really just enjoy your time. This also does give the 10% Tau status effect as well, which is quite nice. There is a small interaction with Razor Gyre and Sentient Wrath. You can see over here, there's damage on lifted. It's basically going to double the damage of Razor Gyre when you use it on a lifted enemy. So, not something I would typically say is worth mentioning, but it is nice to sort of have your thing. And it does seem... Oh, interesting. Oh, maybe Razor Gyre is not working in my Simulacrum because I'm using Dracarmanic Bombards because they're immune to CC normally. If I come over here with an Exo Goxet officer, I bet these guys are going to get sucked up. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I found that in the video. Okay, so the Razor Mortar Augment is working properly in the Simulacrum. Please ignore literally everything that I said about that. That's funny. I didn't even realize. I've been testing on the harder to kill units because Caliban's just so strong. I will put these back to... Actually, you know what? I'll keep them as Exogox sets for now because it might be better for testing purposes, just because I'll be able to run around and sort of group them. But yeah, Razor Gyre, or the Razor Mortar Augment is really nice because you can sort of play patty cake with a group of enemies. So if you really just want to lock down some enemies, you can just tap the ability and they'll immediately get sucked up. The nice part about having the Razor Mortar Augment on is because it is also really, really good CC. You can see over here, if I just want to stun these guys, I literally just have to tap the ability once and they all just get sort of whisked off their feet. You can see over here the energy generation from Razor Gyre is incredibly strong. I'm taking a ton and a ton of damage and I'm instantly, like literally instantly, getting all of my shields back. It is so much better than Pillage, it is so much better than Condemn when it comes to shield generation. Very, very underrated. I see a lot of people actually subsume off Razor Gyre, which is so bizarre to me. I don't understand why you'd ever want to do that. It really, truly is such a very loaded ability, so it's going to be doing a ton and a ton of stuff for you. Anywho, we are going to move on to Lethal Progeny, which is sort of the bread and butter of Caliban's kit. There's a lot to go over when it comes to Lethal Progeny, some different things that you might not know about, because I certainly didn't until I started really using Caliban. Very ironically, I had only really used a purple energy color for the longest time when I was playing with him, so there's a lot of energy effects and stuff like that that might insinuate things that you wouldn't typically know about unless you had seen, you know, the physical effects coming off of the enemies. But to start off, we are going to summon our Conculist. So Caliban has 3 different kinds of summons. He has a Conculist, an Ortholist, and a Sumulist. Conculists generally are not super great. They can do a fair amount of damage, and they do slash procs when they use this whole spinning ability, but Conculists are very in your face, and they will very, very much so pursue an enemy. So if you're fighting against Infested or something like that, they're going to do a great job at stun locking them. As you can see over here, they do continuously stagger enemies as well, which is quite nice. So you can get them to passively CC, and they will have like a higher aggro rating because they're right in front of the enemies. So it is generally good to sort of split the gap between the damage that the Ortholist can do and the crowd control of the Sumulists, is the Conculist sort of bridge that in between. If you are using a nuke build or something like that with Caliban's 4th ability, the Conculist will also fire off the beam that the 4th ability does. So as you can see over here, if we use our 4th ability, these Conculists are also going to replicate that beam, which is really, really strong because it actually does a very surprising amount of damage. If you do prime for viral and stuff like that on enemies, you can do a ton and a ton of damage. So if you wanted to have a nuke build with Caliban, that is certainly an option. Caliban's Ortholus will spawn up over here, and they will start shooting enemies sort of willy-nilly. They do have the best spread of Tau status effect in the game, so it is very, very nice to sort of have these guys. You can see over here that the Ortholus will occasionally switch into this position. This is called the mortar position. They will shoot off sort of a volley of projectiles that will explode, and then also sort of breach out into different smaller explosions, which all have a guaranteed chance to proc the Tau status effect. As you can see over here, every single one of these enemies have 10 stacks of Tau. The Ortholus are incredibly, incredibly good at proccing Tau status, and they're very nice to just sort of have around because they will passively prime enemies for you. If you do combine them with the Razor Mortar Augment, it is going to be even stronger because you're going to be able to force your Ortholists into that mortar position, as well as give them the electric damage bonus, which is really, really strong. If we summon a new set of Ortholists over here, and then we use our Razor Gyre, you're going to see they're instantly going to teleport into that mortar position, and now they're going to be doing guaranteed electric damage as well, which is really, really strong. The thing about the Razor Mortar Augment is that you have to hit an enemy for them to go into their mortar form. So if you don't hit an enemy, they won't teleport to you and they won't go into their mortar form. As you can see over here, when I use the ability, they're still going to wander around. You can look on the minimap as well and sort of see those little blue dots. If I'm not hitting an enemy, they're not going to teleport. But you see, I clipped one enemy over there and they immediately went into their mortar mode. Or actually, no, that wasn't intended. I didn't actually hit an enemy. You can see over there, though, that they will teleport to the group of enemies that you use it on. So You can see I tagged an enemy with my Razor Gyre and they teleported immediately to the location with that augment. So it is very, very nice to force them into a position, especially it brings them to you, right? So if I use my Razor, oh, they're gone. If I use my Razor Mortar on this guy over here, you're going to see they instantly teleport to where that enemy is, and they'll always sort of generally try to form a triangle over those enemies, which is really interesting as well. So they will always attempt to surround the enemies that you hit with your Razor Mortar. And yes, as you can see right now, it very much so gives a ton and a ton of damage. Ortholis are really, really good at just spreading tau status effects. If we go into the ability tooltip as well, you can see over here, you can see the status chance. Unfortunately, it's not moddable, which kind of sucks because it would be awesome if it was moddable. You could get like 10 stacks of tau or something like that with the amount of strength you have. Anywho, it is very, very nice to have the Ortholis just running around and sort of shooting enemies. The last summon that Caliban has is going to be the Summulist, and this is actually what I opt in to use most of the time if I'm going to be doing very high level content. The Summulist is going to pop out a bunch of these little babies over here. This Summulist as well is, I believe, they're one of the only Caliban summons that actually have shields. As you can see over here, the Ortholists and the Conculists do not have any shields. However, the Summulist does. So if the Summulist does take any damage, it will start regenerating those shields, which is really, really convenient. It does make the Summulist much better at surviving and just sort of staying. If you want to have more battle presence, certainly the Summulus is going to be much better for you. But yeah, basically the Summulus is going to spawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there's a 7th one. I'm pretty sure that the summon amount is 7 for... Okay, it's 6. Yeah, so these corelists over here are just going to attack enemies. Something that's important to note, at least my running theory for the corelists, is that these guys actually do have a higher aggro rating than a Warframe. So if we spawn some enemies over here, and we just sort of bring in the Summulus, you're going to see very quickly that they're just going to immediately start shooting. Something important to note is that these corelists are invincible when they first spawn. Ooh. I don't want to die. These corelists are invincible when they do first start spawning in. And the Summulist, as you can see, it's taking damage. And oh my god, it does not care. The Summulist will take so much damage. I'd love to actually know like the actual EHP of these enemies because, my dear god, they very much so can take some hits. As you can see over here, these Exogoxide officers are shooting at the Summulist. You can barely see their shields are draining. It's really, really cool. Also, some very interesting thing about the Summulus is that it's much better for the shield regen. Something I haven't spoken about yet about Caliban summons is that they give him shield regen. So when you're in the radius of a summon, which in this particular version of my build is the same radius as Sentient Wrath, which is about 60 meters, you're going to get a shield regen. So if I really quickly swap my frames, and I go to Banshee, and then I go back to Caliban, you're going to see over here that my shield is 740. The second I start using this ability, it's going to start spitting out these summons, and for every summon that's active, it's going to increase my shield regeneration. The reason this is so strong is because Caliban's 4th ability can give you iframes, which is great, because if you take all this damage and then you use his 4th ability, you have enough shield regen delay on your Caliban, then you'll immediately get those shields back. The other nice thing about this is that the shield regeneration is really, really strong, so coupling it with the shield boost from your Razor Gyre means that you're very, very easily going to be able to keep up your shields, especially if you're moving around and stuff like that. So if I'm just bullet jumping around and I'm moving, I'm barely getting hit, you can see my shields never really dip below, the breaking point, which is really, really cool. So simply having these enemies, not enemies, but simply having your summons up, especially the Summulist, which is going to give you even more shield regen, is really nice just as passive survivability. It's one of the reasons why Caliban is so incredibly strong as a support frame. As you can see over here, the ability expires, so they all just kind of fucking explode, which is kind of funny. Something also really important to note about your Sentinels and your pets is that the Summulus, and not the Summulus in particular, but all of Caliban's summons will be able to give that shield regen to every ally in your squad, meaning everybody gets this shield regen delay when they're in the area, which is really nice because these core lists will spread out and they will just sort of wander. So you will get this shield regeneration from all these enemies. So as long as you're not playing in level cap content, you will have the shield regen to just face tank so many different things. Something important to note as well is that this does affect your pets and your sentinels. So if you really want to make it so that your sentinel is very, very hard to kill, what you can do is you can find the shield regen delay mods, which shield regen accelerated, yeah, accelerated deflection. We can slap this on. This is just a really bad build. This build has no format, but if we put something like this shield regen delay mod onto our companion, as well as like, you know, different other shield mods and stuff like that, it makes it very, very easy because the shield on our summon can get broken, and then it'll immediately come back because they have such a low shield regen delay. In that case, my hound is just stupid, so I can't really help that. It's much better with a sentinel. If you do have a sentinel that's using something like reinforced bond, this overshield as well will push it into that, which is very, very nice. So it's actually really, really convenient if you have a sentinel, like let's say Dariga normally can't benefit from the reinforced bond mod. I'm pretty sure if you put a shield mod on and run around with your summons, then you will get the reinforced bond buff from Dariga, which is just awesome. You can do a lot and a lot of things. So not only is it a buff for you and your teammates getting that shield regen, it is also a buff for your sentinels and any allies that you have on your team. I am unsure if it works with something like specters, but I can only assume because it applies to your companions that it will. But otherwise, it is a very, very, very comfortable supportability because it will just continuously regenerate shields on basically anyone. Caliban and Hildren are best friends. He keeps those shields topped up really, really well for him, especially if you're using the Simulist. I did forget to mention, I mentioned it in sort of a roundabout way, but the Simulist is the best for shield regeneration because the more summons that you have active, the more shields you're going to be regenerating. As you can see over here with the Conquilists, it's going to be 201. With the Ortholis, it's also going to be 201. But once we get our Simulist over here, you can see every time that they spawn a core list, that shield regen bumps up every time. So you can see over here now we're regenerating 469 shields a second versus the 201 shields per second that you typically would from having the 3 summons. So you nearly double the amount of shields that you're going to be regenerating. That is very, very nice. Hold on, we're just going to do this. I'm pretty sure that killed my... Yeah, cool. Caliban's 4th ability is really good. And also, like... I don't know, it's very, very weird because it's really, really strong, but it's also like something that you can absolutely subsume. Caliban does not need a mass area armor strip, but it is really convenient. If you are running really high level content, armor stripping is certainly going to be a damage increase, so it is very useful to have something like that. But generally, if you're going to be playing Steel Path or anything like that, like you really generally don't need an armor strip. Armor is not that big of a problem, especially because you're going to be applying... Oh, I feel another hiccup. Especially because you're going to be applying a lot of other status effects to enemies and stuff like that, and the damage vulnerability from your Sentient Wrath. Having an armor strip is not very useful at all, but it works in a very interesting way. Your armor strip as Caliban is basically like Zaku's gaze, right? I'm pretty sure it's gaze. That armor strips, right? Because you'll use it on an enemy and it'll armor strip in a radius around. And Zaku also likes a ton in a range. Yeah, it basically does that, but it's a lingering armor strip and you can place it whenever you want. So if I bullet jump over here and I use my fusion strike over there, you can see that there's now this radius. You can see it'll sort of glow in some certain angles and stuff like that. As you can see it, you can see the radius over there. This is a massive AoE armor strip range, and this is a permanent armor strip as well, so when this ability expires, these guys still will not have any armor. The armor will not return when they leave this area, which is really, 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 really nice because you can use your AoE armor strip behind a wall or something like that, and they're still going to get stripped. It's not an LOS from the center of the blast. As long as they're in this area, you can strip their armor, which is just awesome. It's amazing. The other thing as well is that it is a defense strip, so it will strip enemy shields. So if we come over here, we're going to pause this. We're just going to get a Corpus battle group, and we're going to summon them up. You're going to see over here, they have no shields. And because they have no shields, or they'll basically lose the shields and then they'll regenerate it because of the the updates in the Jade Shadows, enemy shields regenerate, but it will remove enemy shields. And also Corpus are just so freaking squishy that, I mean, you can kill them very, very easily with this ability, which is kind of funny. But yeah, very, very cool. Very cool, very nice. Yeah, definitely a super duper useful ability. It's just nice to have. It also feels very good to use this. You can do something like a Razor Gyre, and then you can, use your Fusion Strike. As you can see over here, when I use it, my health bar turns gray, which means I'm not going to be taking any damage. So if you are in a massive group of enemies, like, I don't know, we're going to go back to the Exogoxat officers because they do a ton of damage, like this. And we're gonna unpause these enemies. If you're kind of in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, oh no, what am I gonna do? You can use your fourth ability to take and pause that damage, and then you can also combo it. If you spam your Razor Gyre really quickly, it's just going to help you so much, and you'll never die if you use the invulnerability frames that you get from your fourth ability, which is really, really nice. So you can just continuously spam it. You can also see over here that I'm getting my energy refunded as I use Razor Gyre. So if you really wanted to, you could just sit here forever and use this until all the enemies are dead, which I think is very, very funny. The better idea would be to use something like Sentient Wrath in this case, because it would just stop all these enemies from moving. And then we can also use our Razor Gyre to regenerate our energy on top of that. Caliban is amazing because he offers so many different ways to play this game. Caliban genuinely, I feel is sort of a one-man army, especially with the summons. It kind of feels very on point. Having a Caliban on your team is going to help you so much. He's a damage dealing frame, he is a crowd control frame, he is a tanking frame, he is a support frame. He can really, really do it all. The only thing that Caliban can't do is like buff your weapons like fire rate and stuff like that, or casting speed or anything like that. But he just brings so much to the squad. The only thing he can't really do that other Warframes can is like energy generation for other people. But even so, he certainly brings a lot to the table and a lot of value. If I ever see a Caliban in my squad and I'm not playing Caliban, I'm going to be very, very thankful because my shields are always going to be maxed out. My sentinels or my pet shields are always going to be maxed out. Enemies are constantly going to be armor stripped. They're constantly going to be distracted. They're going to be crowd controlled. I'm not even going to get hit. It's like very overkill in the survivability that you get by simply just having a Caliban around, especially if he's going to be running his first augment, which is just going to be constantly ragdolling enemies everywhere. And on top of the fact that you have your Sentient Wrath and the ragdoll and then the stagger from your fourth ability, as well as enemies distracted from your summons, like Caliban has no issues whatsoever surviving. I want to say, with pretty high confidence that Caliban is one of the hardest one of the hardest Warframes to kill in this game, because he just has so many tools at his disposal that stop enemies from attacking you and keep you alive. So yeah, basically, that's Caliban's kit. There are some things that I want to go over as well in regards to his abilities, like little text and stuff like that, that people might not know about. For Razor Gyre, I did show you the jump cancel tech. This is just really nice to sort of help you, do whatever. Something that's really cool is you can do the Razor Gyre into Sentient Wrath. So you can do Razor Gyre, jump, Sentient Wrath, which is really good. So you can sort of combo like this. It helps you. Oh, I ran out of energy. This is just a really good combo. If you see like a big room of enemies, you can do that, which is literally just Razor Gyre, jump, Sentient Wrath. You'll be able to cancel it really, really quickly. Sentient Wrath as well, as some people hopefully know. Oh, I went way too far out of bounds. It will immediately send you to the ground, so you can actually use this instead of a melee slam if you need to get to the ground quickly. Let's say enemies are shooting at you and you, don't want to use a melee slam because it's going to lock you down, right? This melee slam is going to lock you down. By the time you reach the ground, your shields are basically going to be gone. The nice part about this is that Sentient Wrath will just stun them immediately, so you can use this as some really good movement because the angle that it'll send you down at is just about the same as the slam, so it is very, very convenient for stuff like that. Now, this one is very hard to showcase, and you're just going to have to take my word for it. But Caliban summons, when they are low health, they will link together, and they will share their health pool. This is really, really hard to demonstrate, and I'm pretty sure the only way I could do this is maybe if I turn my invincibility on, and then I bring these Orthos over here, and you can see they're going to start taking some damage. Unfortunately, the Ortholiths are really, really, really tanky, so it's gonna take some time. Your Ortholists in Conculus and Semulus basically should never die in a normal Steel Path mission. The only time I ever see my Ortholist die is when I'm doing level cap runs on Void Cascade and stuff like that, because there's just gonna be so many enemies and so many everything like that. But yeah, these guys are just gonna sort of sit here and take the punishment. Like, they're not even a quarter HP down, which is how much, health that they have. So it is very, very hard to showcase this, but yes, when they do take enough damage, which I believe is under 50% of their max HP, they will then link together and they will just share their health pool between each other just to make sure that they don't die. But once again, I mean, the chances that they die simply by getting shot are astronomically low, and most of the time that they die, it's just going to be because the ability expires. But yeah, so that's basically everything that you're going to need to know about Caliban's kit. Some different niche stuff. Ooh, one more thing for Razor Gyre as well is if you crouch when you use it, you can bullet jump out of it, which is really, really nice. It is a little bit weird when you do it because it won't let you bullet jump straight up, so it's best if you use it as like an exit tool or something like that. If you use it starting in the ground, then you can get a really interesting speed boost. So if we're not starting in the ground, starting in the air. So we started in the air. There we go. You can see it's going to give a very, very aggressive speed boost to our bullet jump. And you can really cover some range. You just need to be... Oh, I feel another hiccup. Oh gosh. You can really cover some range. You just sort of need it to be high enough. So if I bullet jump, because I already used my bullet jump, it won't let me use it. So we need to start on high ground, slide, use your Razor Gyre. Oh my gosh, I rarely use it because it's not super duper great. I would rather just use Razor Gyre twice, but there we go. So if you can get it set up right, you can very quickly launch yourself. It's just, I don't know, it's too much to think about. But yeah, you can send yourself pretty quick once you get it going. It's just hard to find like a big open area that I could start on a hill or something like that. This might be able to do. There we go. You can see it really does sort of send you flying. So it is only really best to use this tech when you are on a high ground because that extra speed boost. Because remember, if we use our Razor Gyre and we crouch like that, you can see our camera goes lower, and we try to bullet jump out of this, it's just going to slow us down. But if we use it when we're in the air, like this, then we're going to get launched. So yeah, definitely only use that tech when you're sort of on a high ground in an area that's very open towards you. But yeah, those are all of his abilities. We're gonna go right into the build and sort of how you should be playing Caliban, and then I'm gonna show some I'm gonna show some gameplay, and then yeah, that'll basically be it. Starting with the Archon shards, these are actually really important because this donates a lot to how comfortable Caliban is. Even though his Razor Gyre does give you energy refunds when you hit enemies, it is not enough by itself, and you do need to top up every once in a while. And that is why we have these two Tau Forged Violet Archon shards, because these are the Equilibrium shards. If you kill an Xmas, you're still going to be getting about 150 energy when you kill that Xmas, so it is really, really nice. Maybe not 150 energy, maybe something a little bit lower, but it is going to top you up, and it's going to keep that going. So energy and health orbs will sustain you even longer when you have these active, so it is really, really convenient. I genuinely do recommend having these two on your Caliban. It is going to make him feel so much better, because you will never, and I mean never, not be able to cast an ability, which is Caliban's entire thing, right? All of these abilities are so good, they have so much value, they're so in depth. Yeah, you basically want to have these on all the time. As much as Caliban does love strength, you know, having these two, very, very worth it. Speaking of strength, we have two Tau Forge ability strength shards. These are great because we can just fill up these slots with kind of whatever. If you feel as though you don't need the extra casting speed, this can just go to another strength shard. His base duration on his abilities is just fine, so 128% duration is perfect. Just, source, trust me, bro. This will basically give you 57 seconds, just about a minute for your summons, which is very, very nice. And because the summons don't really have anything that they need to stack up, up, it's just nice to sort of have a very comfortable 1 minute that they're active. That's a really long time for any ability to last in Warframe, so very, very convenient when it comes to that. So 128% duration, in my opinion, is going to be, sort of the sweet spot. But yeah, we also have a casting speed shard here as well. Casting speed helps a couple of things. It's mainly his fourth ability. Even though casting speed does affect the invulnerability that you get from his fourth ability, um, it generally is nice to have it come out a little bit quicker because you're going to be using it in battle, and it's just going to help the flow of combat like much, much better. So it is nice to have the extra casting speed shard because you can sort of, maneuver around and, do your parkour or something like that, and then you can pop it out and just sort of have that really high casting speed. If you're using Matter Eye as well, you'll also get that extra little bit of casting speed, which is going to make it come out even quicker, which is quite nice. But yeah, just because it gives you damage and vulnerability does not mean that is, the sole purpose you have to use the ability. Having the defense strip is going to be really, really nice. I did forget to mention that its base stats and stuff like that. It's a little bit misleading because Fusion Strike has a range of 70 meters. It is not an actual 70-meter circle, or is it a 70 meters? I don't know. Here's the thing. I can shoot that beam and it's going to be over there, right? I can also shoot my beam over here and it's going to spawn that circle where it lands. I don't know if the beam range is supposed to be 70 meters or if the circle radius is supposed to be 70 meters. I'm going to be completely honest, it sure as shit looks like it. It does look like it is a really, really, really huge AoE. So it is very misleading. I'm not entirely sure. If something like Sentient Wrath is going to be 60 meters and that's going to be 70 meters, I can't imagine that they would look super duper different. So who knows? But yeah, the armor strip duration does last for 20 seconds, which means it's going to be a lingering field of armor strip, so very, very strong. It also does deal like a ton of damage of Tau and stuff like that. It has a convergence explosion as well as a damage per second. In the stream as well, we'll also have a status chance as well. So you can see when I'm shooting this at an enemy or something like that, I'm going to be hitting them with the stream, and that will have a status effect to proc Tau. It is just a really, really bad status chance, so definitely not super worth it in my opinion if you're going to be using your fourth ability to proc Tau. But casting speed is going to be very, very useful when you need it. For the base build, this is his base kit. This has no subsume, no nothing. This will handle everything in the game. Everything that you throw at it, it will handle. So it is very, 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 very strong. Super duper duper convenient to just have a non-subsume version of Caliban. He just doesn't need it. You might be thinking to yourself like, oh, Nourish would be really good for the clones, and while that's true, they already do enough damage. They already kill level cap without Nourish, so you don't need Nourish because you have energy generation from Razor Gyre and your Tau Forge Archon shards. So like you're kind of set. His base kit is one of those very, very rare chances in Warframe, or very, very rare things in Warframe that you don't need to subsume. None of Caliban's abilities are bad. None of them are. So it is very, very nice to sort of just have a base / summoner build with Caliban. This is not a full summoner build, but it is nice to just sort of have it. The other builds over here are more leaning into dealing more damage in general and stuff like that. Summoner's Wrath is so strong for Caliban. Let me tell you, Summoner's Wrath is incredibly valuable. The reason is that this actually acts like a roar bonus for our summons. Our summons DOT double dips from the bonus of Summoner's Wrath. This is a multiplicative damage increase. So this is crazy, crazy amounts of damage for all of our summons. Also, very funnily enough, the icon for Summoner's Wrath is Caliban. So teehee, hee hee haha. Yeah, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. The damage between having this and not having this is going to be insane. As far as I know, it does stack with Roar as well, so if you want to use Roar and increase the damage of your summons even more, you can. But yeah, it's just, do not take this off if you're going to be running a Summoner's build. If you're going to be running a weapons platform or something like that, you can change it. But yeah, Summoner's Wrath is so strong on Caliban because it does that double dip. So you can basically look at this aura mod over here as a 75% roar for your summons, right? Not for you, but for your summons. That's how strong the Summoner's Wrath is. We have Transient Fortitude, Blind Rage, and Umbral Intensify here for strength. You can swap out Umbral Intensify for something else. This strength over here is not needed to meet the 100% defense reduction for our fusion strike, so it's not like something that you have to get. It does, however, really affect the lethal progeny. Lethal progeny is very interesting because it double dips on strength with the damage of your clones, basically. Not your clones, but your summons. Basically, what happens is when you increase the strength on your build, it's going to increase the base damage of their weapons, and it's also going to increase their level. However, increasing the level of your summons also increases their base damage. So they benefit twice from the same stat, which means that Caliban really, really likes strength when you're trying to build for damage on his lethal progeny. So you want to get as much strength as you possibly can, which means I also have Molt Augmented and Arcane Commissado. The reason Arcane Commissado is so strong is because it's going to give you another 60% strength. We have 120% strength just sort of laying here in our arcanes, which means that this is going to go up to a very staggering, like, what, 380 something percent strength when they're both stacked up. It's going to be really, really, really strong, right? So yeah, basically, increasing your strength is kind of the name of the game with Caliban, and also having a good range. His duration, you don't care. The efficiency, you don't care because you have Razor Gyre. So you can sort of throw these things out the window. If you really desperately wanted to, you could get rid of Prime Continuity, and your summons would only last for 30 seconds, and your Sentient Wrath will last for 7, and your Fusion Strike will last for 10. IMO, definitely keep this on, because the duration doesn't matter too much, but you don't want it to go negative. If you could have a build without Transient Fortitude and you could just keep the base duration, that would be perfectly fine, because the base duration of your lethal progeny is 45 seconds. That's a ton, right? You get 10 seconds for Sentient Wrath, you get 15 seconds for Fusion Strike, so it is definitely worth it to either not mod for duration whatsoever, or just have a little teeny tiny bit of duration, because in that case, you don't want to make the abilities unusable. Things with Sentient Wrath are going to die long before the duration of the ability expires. It is mainly just for our lethal progeny and our Fusion Strike. However, if you're going to be having the energy generation from Razor Gyre, you're going to be able to use those abilities over and over and over again, so you can refresh them if you need. Archon Stretch used to not work with the Razor Mortar augment, but now it does, which is very, very nice. I'm going to go over Razor Mortar sort of in depth and what exactly it does in a second here, but the electric damage from your Orthless would not trigger Archon Stretch, and now they do. So this is just another passive, energy generation, which is very, very nice. So even though it is not a ton of energy, it might be sort of the make or break if you want to cast a very expensive ability like Fusion Strike or something like that, because you might, let's say, be at 145 energy and you won't be able to cast it or something, or same diff with Sentient Wrath. So having that constant energy upkeep is going to help round out the abilities when you're in between enemies, or, energy orbs and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely worth it to use over the normal Archon Stretch. It's just, min-maxing to the highest degree. Overextended is very nice on Caliban, because we're already building so much strength over here, and we also have our arcanes that are going to give us so much strength. We don't really care about the minus ability strength from Overextended, because the massive, massive 90% ability range. On top of the fact that we have Archon Stretch over here, this is going to mean we have 235% range. This is giving us our gargantuan AoEs for all of our abilities. 23.5 meters of Razor Gyre is huge. Let me really quickly show you what 23.5 meters looks like. That's 26. This is 23, so 23.5 meters. That in a massive bubble around you is going to be what your range is for Razor Gyre, which means I can pull enemies all the way over here with my Razor Gyre. So it is very, very good to have a lot of range on Caliban, because you're just going to be affecting the entire room with all of your abilities. That's why these abilities are so potent, is because they're hitting every enemy around you, which is really, really nice. So having this range combination is going to help a ton. Prime Flow is just very obvious. We do need these energy reserves, especially because we're going to be generating quite a bit of it with our Equilibrium Shards and Razor Gyre, so we want somewhere for that energy to go. Caliban is a caster frame, so we do want some sort of knockdown prevention. Prime Sure-Footed is great. If you don't have Prime Sure-Footed, please, please, Handspring works just fine. Let me tell you, Handspring is just fine. You're going to have all the shield regeneration that you're ever going to need. So if you don't have Prime Sure-Footed, just use something like this. It's not not going to be a big deal at all. Multi-Augmented and Arcane Commissado are also really nice in this case scenario because we're going to be able to snapshot the extra strength and apply that again to our lethal progeny, which is really good. The gameplay loop essentially looks like this. We're going to summon our Ortholists. Our Ortholists are going to do damage. You're going to see over here that they're really quickly going to stack up Arcane Commissado. Our Ortholists are level 80 right here. And then we're going to summon them again, and they go up to level 98 from that extra 60% strength bonus. The fun thing about this, though, is that you can also snapshot with Matter. So if we hop into Matter and we use that, and then we summon them again, they're going to be 110, and the damage is going to be even higher. However, I would only really make sure, if you're going to be summoning your summons again, just make sure that Commissado is built up so you can get the extra strength out of it. You don't need to go into Matter to summon them again with even more strength, because it's only really about a 10 level difference as opposed to the 20 or so that you'd normally get from Arcane Commissado. Plus, the extra movement speed is very nice. Movement speed for Arcane Commissado does translate into fire rate as well, so it is going to be another source of fire rate. I do not know if it is multiplicative or additive with the fire rate from Razor Mortar, but you know, I'm not going to say no to a little bonus here or there, especially because it is movement speed, whereas on the Ortholis over here, this is just a fire rate bonus, so having them move around and sort of be a lot more zippy is going to be very convenient when you have Arcane Commissado. But yeah, this is the base kit summoner build, definitely just super duper strong when it comes to your general use. The next build we have is going to be a weapons platform build. So this is sort of a roundabout, weird weapons platform, not your typical weapons platform. We are buffing fire rate, we're buffing crit chance, we're going to be buffing status chance with our Tau status effects, as well as having a ton of strength. In this build, we're using Thermal Sunder with the Thermal Transfer. The reason is because Caliban's very good at applying a ton of status effects, so it is really nice to have a weapon that can benefit from such status effects. So really quickly, I'm going to swap off the Vidaria Prime. I just have it here because it's sort of part of the showcase. I'm going to go to something like the Aeolac. Let's see, Aeol. Really quickly copy the colors. I just want to brush up on my build over here, just make sure nothing's weird about this. Yeah, this looks fine to me. So Aeolac is already running Blast, which means we can couple this with Heat or the cold damage if we wanted to. But in this case, we're going to use Thermal Thunder. We're going to use it again. This is going to give us a 471% increase on our blast damage, which is very nice. This is also going to give us blast damage. So if your weapon doesn't previously have blast damage, this will benefit them as well. Something a little bit unfortunate about your summons as well is that they will not benefit from the blast damage that this Thermal Thunder can give them. Unfortunately, I do not think that there's any way that we can buff or change the status effects of our summons unless it is through Nourish, because Nourish will give them the viral damage. You know, something like Thermal Thunder will not. However, we do have the extra blast damage, and we do have our Orthos running around, which means we can, you know, use our thing over here, do quite a bit of damage. The Aeolac is one of those weapons that needs to sort of warm up, but as you can see over here, we're proccing a ton of blast. The second we kill that one enemy, now we're really going to be speeding things up. So having sort of the gameplay like this, you can use your Thermal Thunder like this, you know, and just sort of cause a ton of mayhem. It's really nice to do that. The other thing as well is that your allies will be able to benefit from the extra damage from this thermal transfer, so it is really nice. Generally, the rest of the kit stays the same, except for the fact that just Caliban generally has more strength, so his Ortholis at base are going to be a little bit higher level. Not too much to go around with this build, it's just nice. The other one here is a roar platform. The reason why weapons platform and roar platform is a little bit different is because they sort of act a little bit differently. I did forget to go over the build and weapons platform. We have combat discipline and Archon intensify. The reason we have these two together is because Razor Gyre will heal us, and that counts as an ability that heals us, so we get the extra power strength from using Archon intensify, which is quite nice. So using this to snapshot the new level of our lethal progeny will be very comfy. Combat discipline will also cover the Arcane Avenger, which will refresh. It has a 21% chance on taking damage. So basically, every time we get a kill, we're going to take damage. That's going to give us a 21% chance to give us that 45% critical chance, which is really nice. And then Arcane Velocity is also very nice because it's going to give us basically a constant source of 120% fire rate. Oh, no, this is for pistols. Oopsies. Give me a second here. This is supposed to be acceleration. There we go. So now we have arcane acceleration. So you'll be able to see the acceleration come in contact. I knew that the fire rate felt really slow. If we come over here and we use this again on the enemies. Yeah, the fire rate is significantly higher when we have this up. So it is very, very nice. You can see we took damage, so we can heal, and then we can snapshot our Orthless at the new level, which is quite nice. And then, yeah, basically we can sort of do our thing as per usual, apply a ton and a ton of blast procs to our enemies, sort of CC the ever-living hell out of them, and yeah, basically, that's the build. It just focuses very much so on buffing your weapons. This is really good for Void Cascade or Disruption if you really need to kill something very strong. Vigorous Swap is here just because I couldn't really find anything else that I wanted to put in here, because all of our strength slots are sort of filled up right now, so unless you wanted to use something like an Augur mod, which I really don't recommend, like this is barely any amount of strength, you know, 24% strength in my eyes is not worth it. So Vigorous Swap is really nice because it sort of keeps our energy, not our energy, it keeps our damage topped up when we're swapping between primers and kill weapons and stuff like that. So generally I would use this for something like Void Cascade or Disruption would probably be the best. This is really just going all in on focusing on tank busting. As you can see, the damage vulnerability from Sentient Wrath is even higher as well. The Roar platform is basically just, you know, base summoner bit, but with Roar. We do get Piercing Roar, which is very, very nice because that's going to give us the huge AoE knockdown. As you can see over here, we have a 46 meter AoE knockdown with our Piercing Roar. Those 5 stacks of Puncture are also very nice because Puncture will give guaranteed crit. Let me really quickly, this is very unprofessional, but I'm going to Google what the Puncture crit chance Warframe. There we go. Let's see. At 5 procs. So it's 25% base crit at 5 procs, which is very nice. Which means that this is going to be, also, by the way, if you didn't know, the extra crit chance you get from Puncture stacks are a flat crit bonus. They work just like Arcane Avenger. So having the Puncture, you know, sort of hit enemies and stuff like that is going to be very nice. It's going to increase your crit chance even more. Especially if you have a weapon that normally can't really crit. So it's going to be a good little bit of extra damage having the Piercing Roar, and it is also very, very comfy as well to have that. But yeah, basically, Roar works hand in hand with your Summoner's Wrath, so you can just get some pretty silly numbers and stuff like that. If we Roar and we have our Summoner's Wrath activated at the same time, and we use something like our Razor Gyre ability, yeah, it's just gonna absolutely ruin these enemies. Like, it's really not funny how fast it kills them. We can also do Sentient Wrath and then suck them up, and they'll disappear even faster, which is very, very silly. So, yeah, tons and tons of damage. It's rounding it to 10k. But yeah, basically, a Roar platform just works very similarly. This is sort of a hybrid between the full weapons platform build and the summoners build, so we also get the benefit of Roar, but our summons are also going to be doing like a mega amount of damage, so yeah. That's basically it. I mean, Caliban, you can build any which way. I genuinely recommend to you if you're going to be playing Caliban, like, just play with the Space Kit build. The base kit is really, really, really freaking nice. So if you really feel as though you're lacking in damage, which you typically shouldn't be because Caliban is very good at increasing those amounts of damage, then you can use those other builds. But the way that I will forever run him is just going to be having this very, you know, vanilla sort of build. And yeah, basically, that's all you really need to know. I already had a video on the ALAC and everything like that. It is a very, very cool and fun weapon to use. But yeah, I'm basically just going to cut to some gameplay. Either it's going to be Mott or something in the Zarman. If I can find a Fisher for Void Cascade, then I absolutely will do that. But if not, yeah, I'll see you there. Okay. So, we could not find a Void Cascade Fissure, which there was one video that I had done before where I tried to, what is it? I tried to do like a video showcase in a non-Fissure Void Cascade, and it was like an actual snooze fest. You can see over here, we can build up our energy really, really quickly, just by using that our Razor Gyre a couple of times. So we're just going to pop in our Lethal Progeny, and then we can suck them all up, and these sort of summons, we're just going to go around and kill enemies really, really easily. We can set up an Armor Strip field here as well, and yeah, we can just sort of reap the benefits from our kit, basically. Our summons are going to do a lot of the killing for us, which is very, very nice. And then, yeah, we can do that. We can come over here. Yeah, this is kind of no match for normal Steel Path. Caliban really will just ruin, like, everything that this game can throw at you. So, like, I don't know. It might be making this look like too easy or something like that. Yeah, our summons are just gonna absolutely ruin these enemies. But overall, Caliban's an extremely comfortable Warframe. I really think a lot of people need to put more respect on this frame's name. People don't really understand exactly what he's capable of, and I think that they jump on this hate bandwagon when you really, really, really should, you know, just try the frame out, right? If you ever find yourself trying to say that a Warframe is bad, just, you know, give the Warframe a try and really, really just see that for yourself, right? Yeah, Ortholas are very healthy, basically taking no damage. Even though enemies in the void deal extra damage, they are still going to tank the ever-living shit out of literally anything. So, yeah, there's not really that much to speak about other than the fact that Caliban is just extremely, extremely strong. Is he Dante level? Like, is he like Dante break the game? Definitely not, but I do think that he is sort of in a beautiful middle ground where he offers it feels as though he offers very similar support that Dante has, and survivability to the entire team, but in a more engaging and more fun way. It feels like he does that, which is really nice, because I feel like Dante's biggest issue in Warframe right now is that he's just sort of a snooze fest to play, and you press your abilities and then nothing happens and everything dies, and you don't die, is basically how it feels like Dante works. So definitely really, really nice to have the strength and security of playing with a Warframe like Dante, but it's all packed into Caliban's kit now, and yeah, Caliban summons are even better than Dante's. But yeah, basically that's that. I mean, I can put an armor strip field over here, I can put an armor strip field over here. Oh, War's here. Hey, big guy. Bye. I really like the Kuva Comb for Caliban because of all these Tau status effects that he's going to be spreading around. Increasing that status chance is going to be so deadly. My Kuva Comb build is kind of fancy, though. I do have a pretty nice ribbon for it, so yeah. As you can see over here, if we take a look up, whoopsies. There we go. You can see that's the AoE from our fourth ability in active right there. So yeah, you can sort of see the entire areas doing that weird thing. It's very, very hard to see sometimes, and it's very, you know, when you're near it, you won't see anything. But yeah, basically, we use our first ability a couple times, and now we have our energy back, and we've already killed them all because of Razor Mortar, so it's pretty cool. I can use Razor Mortar to summon our enemies back in here. And yeah, I did say I would go over Razor Mortar in depth, but I sort of realized when I was looking back at the footage I had already recorded, I basically explained how the entirety of the augment works anyways, so it's a little funny. But yeah, if you do have Guardian on your Sentinels and stuff like that, the shield regen delay is going to be really nice because it's just going to immediately jumpstart that shield regen for you, so it is very, very convenient. Yeah, I'm just gonna go to 5 minutes. There's really no reason that I need to stick around or anything like that. I obviously just don't want to spend the entirety of a video in the simulacrum because that's a little bit boring. But yeah, I would say just, you know, give the Warframe a try for yourself. The drip is immaculate with his Orfeo skin. The damage is great, the survivability is great, the crowd control is great. Yeah, you can also see that little shield link as well with our Ortholis over there. You can see when we get near them, they will do that little thing when we need heals. Which is not something you typically see if you have a dark energy color. But yeah. I don't know. I'm really running out of things to say. Like, I can just sit here and let my summons kill everything if I really wanted to. If I genuinely wanted to, I could just sit up here I'm not taking enough damage for this to be important. Like, ooh, right, we can armor shift this acolyte. What I like to do for acolytes is the second they spawn, I'll put up the Sentient Wrath. I could also, oh no, my ability's prevented. I want to see if I can get my summons to kill Violence over here. Oh, are they borked up because he silenced them? I actually wonder. Interesting. That's fine then. I don't know, that one Orthos was not acting right. Yeah, it's really good. Sentient Wrath will also stun a lot of enemies. It will stun disruptors as well for you, so it'll keep them sort of floating for a little bit. It is very diluted though. It'll only really keep them in the air for a couple of seconds, but it is sort of hard to find a stun mechanic in Warframe that will actually affect disruptors and demolishers and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Acolyte's dead. Caliban's good. Great KPM, by the way. 700 total kills in just about 5 minutes is pretty cool. So yeah, basically that's your Caliban Prime. That's my baby, my sweet boy.
I love my daddy, my superhero.
And probably about as much as you'll ever need to know about this Warframe packed all into one video. And yeah, I hope you guys had a lovely time. I'm gonna work on the Vidaria and the Venato Prime builds in a second. And yeah, I've been talking for like over an hour though, so I need to take a break. I'm probably gonna have lunch. Okay.